Hello, everyone, and welcome to our training on digital peace building and cyber conflict. This is the part three of our training. This is the third part three of this training on the digital peace building and cyber conflict. We have actually started this training. We've done part one and part two, and today we will continue the training by starting from module five of the training. Module five here will be looking at cyber conflict and peace in Nigeria. Cyber conflict and peace in Nigeria, and of course, what is this going to this aspect actually going to talk about? Will be the area involving digital threats, opportunities, and even peace building responses in Nigeria. So we'll look at what is the overview of this module five. The overview of this module five is that module five actually examines the nature of cyber conflicts in Nigeria, including cybercrime, misinformation, election interference, online hate speech, and even digital extremism. Module 5 also explores how digital tools are being used for peace building, civic engagement, early warning, and even conflict prevention. So participants in this training will analyze Nigeria's cybersecurity architecture, legal frameworks, and even institutional actors and grassroots digital peace initiatives. So the learning objectives of this module 5 is that by the end of this module, you as a participant should be able to identify major forms of cyber conflict in Nigeria, analyze the role of digital platforms in Nigeria's security challenges, and also understand Nigeria's cybersecurity policies and institutions, and of course, examine digital peace building initiatives in Nigeria and propose context specific digital peace building strategies. Now, let us quickly move in to Module 5 proper. Overview of cyber conflict in Nigeria. What are the key digital threats? Of course, we should understand that Nigeria faces multiple cyber-related challenges. Some of these cyber-related challenges include cybercrime and financial fraud, election-related misinformation, online hate speech and incitement, extremist propaganda and recruitment, digital surveillance, and privacy concerns. These are just an overview of cyber conflict in Nigeria. These are the key digital threats that I just mentioned. And the key insight is that Nigeria actually experiences cyber conflict mostly below the threshold of armed conflict, but with significant social and political impact. Now, still looking at cybercrime and economic security in Nigeria. What is the nature of cybercrime in Nigeria? And what are the common forms of cybercrime in Nigeria? We have about four of them. Common forms of cybercrime in Nigeria. Number one is phishing and online fraud. We have ransomware attacks. We have identity theft, and we also have business email compromise. These are the four common forms of cybercrime in Nigeria: phishing and online fraud, like I mentioned, ransomware attacks, identity theft, and of course, business email compromise. Now, you may ask yourself, what are the impacts? The impact of these common forms of cybercrime. The impact is one, there's loss of public trust in digital systems. Another impact is economic damage to individuals and businesses. Then there's another impact of reputational damage, to the country. We all know what we're talking about here. And of course, the institutions that are involved in mitigating the adverse effect of these common forms of cyber attacks in Nigeria. We have the EFCC, that is the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. Then we have the Nigerian Police Force Cybercrime Unit, for example, the National Cybercrime Center of the Nigerian Police Force in Nigeria. Now, let us quickly also look at the digital misinformation and political conflict. Because we know that during elections, we have online manipulations. Elections and online manipulations may, look at fake election results being circulated on social media, ethnic and religious narratives amplified online, and we have coordinated misinformation campaigns, coordinated disinformation campaigns also. These are very, very familiar. Now, of course, we have a case study. Nigeria's 2019 and 2023 elections actually saw increased use of digital misinformation and deep fake content. In the last, the concluding part two of this training, I described what I mean. I explained what we mean by deep fakes. Deep fakes are videos of 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 individuals, of people, doing certain things when, of course, these people are not the ones doing them. Just like what we call it, deep fakes. These are fake videos of people who have been, cloned and have been made to be making an announcement or be, making an instruction or authorizing transactions or do certain things that they are not even the main persons or the real ones doing, that particular activity. That is deep fake. Now, what about the role of civil society? We should talk about the role of civil society. Civil society can actually respond by doing what we call fact-checking organizations. They can check organizations, fact-checking organizations, and they can do digital literacy campaigns. Digital literacy campaigns using the same digital technologies to promote digital literacy, to promote, peace dialogues. And of course, another aspect that another role of the civil society is to do election monitoring platforms. Election monitoring platforms can be set up by these organizations. And we have key actors like the Dubawa, we have Africa Check Nigeria, and we have Center for Democracy and Development, CDD West Africa. Now, let us quickly look at another very worrisome aspect, and that is the aspect of online hate speech and communal violence. Online hate speech and communal violence. There's what we call ethnic and religious tensions online. Ethnic and religious tensions online. We have seen some kind of online incitement that is linked to farmer herders conflicts in Nigeria. Online incitement that is also linked to ethno-religious crisis, and some of them are linked to regional political tensions. We must put all this into consideration. Now, what are the challenges? The challenge is that digital narratives often spill into offline violence. That is a fact. Digital narratives often spill into offline violence. Now, let us look at another aspect: extremism and digital recruitment. Like the Boko Haram and what have you, the Boko Haram and the ISWAP online strategies. When we look at the use of online platforms for propaganda, the use of online platforms for recruitment, and also for psychological warfare. What are the responses that can be done? We have responses that involve countering narratives by government and civil society, and also community engagement through digital platforms. Now, let us also consider Nigeria's cybersecurity and digital governance framework. Nigeria's cybersecurity and digital governance framework. Legal and policy frameworks, like, for example, what are the legal and policy frameworks we have on ground in Nigeria to actually respond to, some of the cybercrime that we are, online hate speech and online challenges we have. We have one, cyber crimes, Prohibition and even Prevention Act of 2015. We have a Nigeria Data Protection Act of 2023, and there's also the Nigeria Cyber Security Policy and Strategy. All these are the aspects. Then, of course, the key institutions here is NIDA, National Information Technology Development Agency, and also the Nigeria Computer Emergency Response Team, NGSAT, and of course, we have Office of the National Security Advisor. These are the three key institutions that are meant to administer the acts of cybercrime and the Nigeria Data Protection Act, and also the National Cyber Security Policy and Strategy. Let us look at digital peace building initiatives in Nigeria. We have youth and civil society-led efforts that has to do with online peace campaigns during elections, digital early warning systems, social media, dialogue forums. These are, youth and civil society-led efforts. Then what about media and peace journalism? Media and peace journalism is also another aspect that needs to be taken into consideration, like responsible reporting, and even fact-checking partnerships, and also counter hate initiatives. When you counter hate initiatives, challenges to peace building in Nigeria. We know the challenges to peace building in Nigeria that we have. Some of these challenges include, of course, we know the challenge of digital divide, the digital literacy, and the digital illiteracy. There's a wide gap between those who are digitally literate and those who are digitally illiterate. The gap is very wide. So, of course, there's even low digital literacy. It's very poor. Trust, of course, there's trust deficit. The trust model is very, very key as far as online activities is concerned. And of course, challenges to digital peace also include weak enforcement of cyber laws. We have weak enforcement of cyber laws, and there's even language and cultural diversity. These are the challenges to peace building or digital peace building in Nigeria. Now, let us look at opportunities and best practices also. Which, of course, we know that growing youth digital engagement, there's a growing youth digital engagement, there's even expanding fintech and tech ecosystem, there's regional and even international partnerships. These are opportunities and best practices, and there's even community-based digital peace building. These are some of the areas that will needs to be put into consideration. Now we have some discussion questions at the end of this particular module 5. And these questions you can answer them on your own, and get to treat them by yourself and use that to improve your digital peace building skills. And some of these questions involve: number one, what makes Nigeria particularly vulnerable to cyber conflict? What makes Nigeria particularly vulnerable to cyber conflict? You can even talk about this at the comment section so that we can also discuss about them. Then, of course, we look at how does online misinformation exacerbate offline tensions? How does online misinformation exacerbate offline tensions? Let's discuss this also at the the comment section of this particular video. Then, of course, are Nigeria cybersecurity laws sufficient for peace building? Are Nigeria cybersecurity laws sufficient for peace building? That is the third discussion question. Then the fourth discussion question is: how can youth be more effectively engaged in digital peace initiatives? How can the youth be more effectively engaged in digital peace building initiatives? Talk about this. Let's talk about this at the comment section of this particular training. Now we have actually looked at Module 5 in detail. We moved on to Module 6. Module 6 is looking at digital peace building in Africa. Digital peace building in Africa. Remember, we have to move away a little bit from the Nigerian perspective to the African perspective. Now, in this very Module 6, we are trying to look at digital technologies, conflict dynamics, and even peace building innovations in Africa. This Module 6 explores how digital technologies shape conflict and peace building across Africa. It actually examines the dual role of technology in amplifying conflict drivers such as misinformation, online hate, and the dual role of technology in amplifying conflict drivers. So, and of course, it will also look at innovative peace building, early warning, and civic engagement initiatives. So, in this particular Module 6, participants like you and I will analyze regional trends, comparative case studies, and even African-led digital peace innovations. Now, what are the learning objectives of Module 6? By the end of Module 6, you will be able to identify key digital conflict trends in Africa, analyze regional cyber and information threats, examine African digital peace building initiatives, and of course, you can understand the role of youth, civil society, and even technology hubs. You can draw lessons for scalable and sustainable peace building. Now, let us quickly look at this again very clearly. Africa's digital transformation and conflict landscape. Africa's digital transformation and conflict landscape. One thing we must actually get very clearly here is that there is a rapid digital growth in Africa. Africa has actually experienced explosive mobile phone penetration. Africa has experienced expansion of social media usage, and Africa has actually experienced growth of fintech and digital services. So the result of this is that digital tools now play a central role in politics, identity, and conflict dynamics. Yes, very, very key. We must know that. Now, the digital divide, there's what we call the digital divide and inequality. That is one of the challenges that we are having, because we have unequal access to cross rural, urban, gender, and income lines. Yes, we have unequal access across rural, urban, gender, and even economic, and even income lines. There's language diversity, which complicates content moderation. You understand? And of course, we have infrastructure gaps, which affects resilience. Infrastructure, these are the major challenges we're having. Now, let us actually look at digital drivers of conflict in Africa. One, misinformation and disinformation. Remember, we have actually explained the difference between the two. Misinformation is when false information is being spread without any intention of harm, While disinformation is when you have false information being spread with the intention to harm or to damage. So these are the two aspects. So digital drivers of conflict in Africa, we have misinformation and disinformation. Under that category, we have political manipulation during elections. We have ethnic and religious incitement. We also have foreign and domestic influence operations. All this happens under what we call disinformation and information. Number two category is online hate speech. These are digital drivers of conflict in Africa. Under online hate speech, we have identity-based narratives, mobilization of violence, and even dehumanization of outgroups. That is another category. The third category is what we call digital authoritarianism. Digital authoritarianism. Yes, under that category, we have internet shutdowns, like the kind of shutdown that took place in some African countries each time there's about to be election. They'll shut down the internet, and in order to, to make it difficult for people to send information across boundaries. Then, of course, under digital authoritarianism, we also have surveillance of activities and even on online expression, restriction of online expression. These are aspects. Now, let us look at regional case studies. Regional case studies, like number one, in Kenya, elections and digital peace building. We know that there was the use of social media monitoring during elections in Kenya, and there was civil society early warning systems, and they had youth-led peace campaigns. That's a very important case study. Another case study is the one in Ethiopia, where online hate and ethnic conflict actually amplified ethnic polarization. Yes, there was weak content moderation in local languages, and online narratives actually contributed to offline violence. These are some of the things. So, what are the lessons to be learned? The lessons we must learn is that early digital intervention is critical. That is very important. Case study 3 is Sudan, digital activism and peace movement. In Sudan, we had social media being used to mobilize protests and digital documentation of human rights abuses. And of course, we had internet shutdowns as repression tools. That is, people can be repressed just by shutting down the internet. Now, we had case study 4 in the Sahel region, extremism and even digital recruitment in the Sahel region. You have extremist groups using encrypted platforms. We have counter narratives by civil society, and of course, we had digital monitoring challenges. These are some of the things that we must also know. Now, Africa digital peace building innovations. African digital peace building innovations we must put that into consideration. Now, we know that we have what we call digital early warning systems. This is a digital African digital peace building innovation. It has to do with digital early warning systems. Under digital early warning system, we have crowdsourced reporting. We have real-time monitoring of incidents. That is very important. It is part of the peace and security early warning network. That is a very powerful innovation, where AI can also be used for predictions of conflict prevention. Then of course you have another digital innovation in Africa. Number 2 is youth-led digital peace initiatives, using online dialogue forums and also creative content for peace. These are initiatives that can be expanded upon in Nigeria too. Then number 3, we have fact-checking and media literacy. Africa Check is another aspect that goes into fact-checking and media literacy. Then let us quickly look at the role of regional institutions. The role of regional institutions like the African Union. The African Union there was this Malabo Convention on Cybersecurity, and there was Peace and Security Council engagement. These are actually in respect of the role of regional institutions. The role of the African Union, ECOWAS to play a part in respect of election observation and digital monitoring, and even cybercrime cooperation. Now, what we must also look at again is what are the challenges to digital peace building in Africa? Challenges to digital peace building in Africa is very simple. 1, infrastructure and capacity gaps. That is one challenge. Infrastructure and capacity gaps. 2, linguistic diversity. 3, weak regulation and even enforcement. Yes, weak regulation and mistrust between government and citizens. These are the challenges to digital peace building in Africa. And of course, what are the opportunities and best practices? Opportunities and best practices involve youth innovation ecosystems, mobile first peace solutions, and of course, cross-border collaboration. And we have context-sensitive digital governance. These are some of the opportunities and best practices. Now let us look at what we call analytical framework, which has to do with regional digital peace assessment. How do you do some kind of analytical framework to assess the degree of regional peace progress that have been made? Then we look at identifying digital conflict drivers, which we have just done. Then you map key actors and platforms. Then the third aspect is to assess risk and resilience. And of course, the fourth one is to design inclusive digital interventions and also monitor and adapt strategies. These are very important aspects. Now, module 6 is coming to an end here with some discussion questions which you can bring, and you can come on board with some of these questions at the comment section where we can discuss them. One of the questions is, why are elections high risk digital moments in Africa? Why are elections high risk digital moments in Africa? 2, how does digital authoritarianism affect peace building? How does digital authoritarianism? Don't forget, we talked about how shutting down of internet is a repressive activity. It's a repressive activity, yeah, and of course, it has to do with authoritarianism also and how it affects peace building. Then we talk about what lessons can Nigeria learn from other African countries. What lessons? And how can African-led solutions shape global peace building, global digital peace building? How can African-led solutions shape global digital peace building? These are some of the questions we need to ask. In the handout of this particular course, we have a lot of suggested readings and resources, and we have some module summary and what have you, which you are going to get as long as you show the interest in getting the course material. Then let us look at module 7. Under module 7, we want to look at global perspectives on cyber conflict. Global perspectives on cyber conflict. Here we'll be looking at cyber conflict in international security and global power politics. Yes. Now the module, what is the overview of this module 7? The overview of module 7 is that the module 7 actually examines cyber conflict as a core feature of contemporary international relations. What this means is that module 7 actually explores how major powers use cyber capabilities for strategic competition, influence, and even warfare. How cyber operations blur the lines between war and peace, and how global governance mechanisms attempt to manage risk and promote stability. So in this module 7, participants like you and I will analyze global cyber conflict trends, state behavior, and even international responses, with lessons for peace building at national, regional, and even global levels. So that means the learning objectives for module 7 here is that at the end of this module, you and I would understand the cyber conflict in the context of global power politics. We will also analyze state-sponsored cyber operations and strategies. We will also examine great power competition in cyberspace. And we will also understand international cyber norms and governance efforts. We will assess implications for global peace and security. Now, that is very important. Let us quickly look at cyberspace in international relations. Cyber conflict and the changing nature of war. Now, what we all know that cyber conflict actually occurs continuously, not only during wartime. Cyber conflict actually blurs boundaries between civilian and military targets. Yes. Cyber conflict also operates below the threshold of armed conflict. So the key insight here is that cyber operations enable strategic competition without open warfare. Yeah. So cyber operations enable strategic competition without open warfare. Now let's look at state-sponsored cyber operations. State-sponsored cyber operations. What are the objectives of state-sponsored cyber operations? The state can use cyber tools. The state can use cyber tools. 1, to gather intelligence. 2, to influence political outcomes. 3, to disrupt enemies' infrastructure. And also 4, to signal power and capability. These are some of the objectives of state-sponsored cyber operations. Then the major cyber powers. Who are the major cyber powers? As far as Nigeria, as far as the world is concerned, as far as the world is concerned, who are the major cyber powers? 1, the United States. The United States, of course, they lay emphasis on cyber deterrence and defense. That is what they normally use their cyber power for. And the US Cyber Command as a unified combat command. Then the second major cyber power is China. China uses their cyber power for cyber espionage and information control, and they focus on technological sovereignty. The third category, the third power is Russia. Yes, we talked of major cyber powers. Russia, using information warfare and psychological operations, and also integration of cyber tools into hybrid warfare. Now let us look at great power competition in cyberspace. Power competition in cyberspace. We know that there's cyber competition below armed conflict. Some of the kind of cyber competition below armed conflict we are talking about is what? Where you have persistent engagement strategies, when you have constant probing and signaling, when you have limited escalation control. So example, election interference and even information operations. These are some of the areas that there's power competition in cyberspace. Now, cyber conflict as strategic messaging. Cyber conflict as strategic messaging, because cyber conflict actually demonstrates capability. It tests your defenses. It can even influence global norms. These are some of the things that we need to actually look into. We have discussed state-sponsored cyber operations. Now let us look at global cyber conflict case study. The case study one that we have is the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Like I said in the other time, that the Russia-Ukraine conflict actually started in the cyberspace. There were cyber attacks on energy and communication systems between these two countries. There was even disinformation campaigns targeting morale and legitimacy. There was even integration of cyber and kinetic operations between Russia and the Ukraine conflict. So the lessons we should learn from the cyber and Ukraine conflict is that cyber resilience is essential for national survival. Yes, I don't know how prepared that Nigeria is in respect of cyber resilience. But of course, case number two is the US-China cyber competition. US-China cyber competition. There's intellectual property theft allegations between the two countries. And there's also competition, competing digital governance tools, models, competing digital governance models, and we also have technology decoupling between these two. Case 33 is what? Election interference in Western democracies. Election interference in Western democracies. We have social media manipulation, we have disinformation campaigns, and we have challenges to democratic legitimacy. Now, these are some of the things we need to know. Then we'll quickly look at international law and cyber conflict. International law and cyber conflict. What is the applicability of international law in cyber conflict? One, the United Nations Charter Principles. Two, international humanitarian law. Three, state responsibility and attribution. These are international law that is applicable, various laws that is applicable to cyber conflict. That is the UN Charter Principles. It's a law. It contains law that is applicable to cyber conflict, and of course, even international humanitarian law too. Now, what are the key challenges here? International law was not designed for cyberspace. That is the challenge. International law was not designed for cyberspace. So cyber conflict is actually posing a new dimension. It's actually coming up with a new system, with a new, that is alien to international law. So of course, we must also look at global governance and norm building. Like in the United Nations, we have the United Nations group of governmental experts. We have open-ended working group, and these organizations actually focus on areas that have to do with responsible state behavior, confidence building measures, and even protection of critical infrastructure. Now, what we must quickly look before we go to the end, we look at the end of this particular module. Implications for peace building. What are the implications for peace building? Challenges. We have escalation of risk. That is a challenge. Digital, cyber conflicts have implications for peace building. The challenge is that escalation of risk. There's civilian harm. There's also normative uncertainty. And what are the opportunities we also have, within this space of, within the cyberspace? The opportunities of cyber diplomacy. Cyber diplomacy is also there. We also have confidence building measures, and we have norm promotion and even capacity building. These are some of the opportunities, in respect of implications for peace building. Then lessons for Africa. Lessons for Africa and Nigeria. There's need for cyber resilience. We don't need to say that again. There's need for cyber resilience. Every nation of the world now should develop a kind of cyber security architecture that will build some level of cyber resilience. That is one of the lessons we should know for Africa and Nigeria. Then another lesson is the importance of international cooperation is key. Importance of international cooperation. Three,